Hello, I'm Jerry Pike, and this time we're looking at relationships. And I'm a bit guilty of using titles and putting pictures up that entice you in. But when you start watching, you find that it's been taken down a different track than you might have been expecting. And this is one of those because with relationships, you might be thinking it was going to be about partners and romance and getting into a relationship if you're not in one. But really, this is looking at the fundamental way that relationships is at the core of the structure of life. And can we glean anything more significant about it to help us in our own lives? Because relationships are everywhere. You have hundreds of different relationships and you switch between them with effortless ease from when you're dealing with a friend or if you're dealing with your partner or you're dealing with your children or you're dealing with a shop assistant, or you bump into a stranger. They all call for a different set of considerations in that relationship, even down to the relationship you have in the place where you live, if you own the house or if you're renting. And then there's a relationship you might have with the knife and fork in your cutlery drawer, which that relationship says you can just use it whenever you want. And if you want to bend the knife, you can. It's okay. But other relationships wouldn't allow you to take those sorts of liberties. So to take a topical example, to ask the question, what is our relationship with the planet? And for some centuries now, we've been a bit guilty of tending to see the planet just simply as something we can use to suit ourselves, a bit like the knife and fork in your cutlery drawer. If you want something from the planet, just take it. And yet, in the last few decades, that view of that relationship has started to change. And we're now questioning what should be a better relationship to have with the planet. Okay, and it's partly due to the fact that we polluted the planet, we've been draining it of its resources. But from the spiritual standpoint, I think we're questioning whether there's not something more alive about the planet, and therefore we need a different consideration and a different kind of respect, not just to not sort of bugger it up and make a mess, but is there some kind of living relationship we could have with a planet, a feeling one, something a bit more where the kind of traffic that passes between us and the planet is a bit more clued in. So this is an example where the view of that relationship is changing and it starts to open up different possibilities and a different way of going on because of our view of that relationship. So a question to ask in this is, what might be the most profound relationship you could have? Or in the great scheme of life, what is the most significant relationship of them all? So I wonder what you think to it, because you might wonder that maybe the most significant and profound relationship is to be a friend, or is it to be a partner, or perhaps it's even to be a lover. Or shall we say the view that we're really the boss and that's the best way to think about our relationships? Or the other end of the scale, that we are in service to something. And maybe that's what's going to be the most fruitful and rewarding way to think about a relationship. So I don't know what you would think about in that, but I'd like to put one idea to you. And that is that the most profound and significant relationship might be, little drum roll here, parenting. And that might seem a bit of an anticlimax. You might be thinking, parenting? That sounds a bit dull. Surely he doesn't mean that. But think about it for a minute. Think about how much life uses parenting in order to give it the right stability and growth and set trajectories for its developing future. And there seems to be a law at play which says that you can't come onto the planet unless you've got parents. And so, you have to have that relationship with parents in order to be here. And then not only that, you really ought to stay with them for, say, 20 years and then you're free to sort of drop that relationship in a way and start to engage in life directly. So there seems to be something quite important about it. And there's also something a bit curious about parenting, because if you think about, say, the plant, it produces seeds and they blow away in the wind or by other means get distributed about the place, and they are not parented in any way. They're just left to grow and fend for themselves. And yet when you move to animals, then parenting starts to appear. And there seems to be a correlation between the sophistication of life and the degree of parenting it needs. So at the low end of animals, you get flies who lay eggs and then they just disappear, and the little grubs are born and then grow up looking after themselves. And really all the fly has done is try to make sure that they lay their eggs where there's a source of food. But when you get a more advanced animal like a chicken, it lays eggs, but then it looks after the chick for maybe 6 to 8 weeks before it is left to go its own way. Or you take the example of a deer, and it will look after the fawn for about a year, and then the fawn, the deer, will be not be staying with the mother. And the animal that seems to have the longest period of looking after its young is the elephant, and the baby elephant can often stay with the mother for 6 to 8 years before it starts acting independently. And then when you come on to the human case, which is a more sophisticated life form than the animals, we stay with our parents for about 20 years. And so there seems a very clear relationship between how advanced the life form is and how much extra time it needs for parenting. Now, if you extend that and you think about the universe, and you think that, possibly the universe is a living organism, and why has it created parenting at the heart of the way things are done as things get more sophisticated and evolved? And you think of the complexity of the universe, and maybe it too is parenting itself, or at least it looks like it may be parenting us. And is that a line of thinking that could help us? So there's a lot to be considered, because we know parenting towards our children, and you can start to open it up in terms of, is the universe parenting us? And can we use that towards something in our own lives? For example, you take the view that, from the spiritual standpoint, we all have a deeper side. We are all seeming to be carrying some kind of spiritual awareness that seeks for better possibilities, that has a altruism and a hope and a belief in something far greater than our life is perhaps able to show at the moment. And are we trying to give birth to that, or trying to foster it into greater growth and appearance? And could the attitude of the parent help in that, as opposed to a different kind of relationship, or friend or boss, or, something of that kind? So do take a look at part 2 of this, where we'll just explore that a bit more, about the relationship or the comparisons between the way we bring up our children to the way the universe might be rearing us, to how then we can use examples from that to consider how we are trying to be a parent to something deep inside of us. So do look at part 2 to see that opened up a bit. So I hope you found that useful and thought-provoking, and maybe it's an idea that we can explore more as a human race to try and distill the wisdom that is latent within it when we start to turn our mind into how we think about relationships and what then can be possible from that.